Hello, WestCare colleagues. For those of you I haven't met, my name is Bob Neri. I serve as a Senior Vice President, Chief Clinical Officer for the WestCare Foundation. I want to take a minute today to share some work that we're doing that oftentimes gets overlooked in terms of a direct model, and that is prevention. A number of folks are working with prevention, working with youth, but all of us really work in prevention. Many of us working with adults have adults who either have children already or are planning to have children. And really the goal of all of our prevention work is to break the intergenerational cycle of substance abuse. So one of the things that I wanted to share with you today is just a little model that helps us focus on this. Most young children have very little interest in following peers when they're very young. They're really interested in pleasing their parents. So as we look at this graph beside me, you'll see that parental influence is very high whenever children are very young. And it declines as they get older, and some of you who have teenagers know this, and then levels off at about 18, starts to come back up again. So children really are influenced by parents in terms of their attitudes and beliefs between the ages of birth and 12. Then you have peer influence, which starts very low with the young children. They're not naturally followers of other children. They're much more independent than that, but they learn that to follow peers. And that line intersects again at about 11. And then continues to go up and then levels off at about 17 or 18. So peer influence, as we know, is very high from middle school through high school up. So you have these two lines that intersect at 11 years old. So what does that tell us? That tells us that all of our work that we want to do with young children and educating our adults about how to parent our young children really has to do with establishing anti-drug attitudes between the time they're 2 and 3 years old and 11, 12 years old. That's when we have the most influence and try and help them understand drugs are dangerous, drugs can hurt you, and to be careful about who you choose to hang around that might be using drugs. That all happens in this first piece here. If we wait till they're 11 years old, which is generally when prevention has kind of started, it's been like in 6th grade, 7th grade, it's actually kind of late because we already have lost a lot of our main influence. And at that point, the peer influence is much stronger. So our job is really to help our residents, clients understand that they need to do a lot of work with their children to break this cycle from birth until 12 years old. And from 12 years old, their parental responsibilities really are to try to make sure who they choose as good friends. They have good friends, good peers that aren't going to be influencing them in a negative way. So as you see this coming down, and then down as a parent, and as you see this coming up, our work has to happen in this range right here from 0 to 12. And for those of us that are working directly doing prevention, or those of us who are working with adults who have kids, this is one of the messages we want to help give to the adults we're serving, is to really work with your children as much as you can when they're young to help shape their attitudes to be different against the nature of drugs.